In this video, I will be comparing three lenses: the Voigtlander 50mm 1.4 Nikon F mount. This is with the FTZ adapter. The Voigtlander 50mm 1.2 Nokton with the Leica M mount, and the Zeiss 50mm 1.5 Sonnar with the Leica M mount. My pick is the Zeiss. Stay tuned for an explanation of why. So, I look for lenses that have character, that have atmosphere, that have pop, that have magic to them. I'm looking for lenses to make photos that are not just a documentation of reality, but in the best case, a photograph is a reflection of the emotion that you're having in that moment, in the presence of what you're taking a picture of. It's just like cinematography when you make a film. The light choice, the framing choice, the camera movement, and of course the lens choice, all of that is there to amplify the emotion of the story you're telling. And it's the same thing with still photography. I don't want a flat, boring lens that has nothing to contribute. I want pictures that convey emotion. So that brings me to this lens. My favorite lens I've ever used is this Voigtlander 50mm 1.4 Nokton in the Nikon F mount. The feeling in the photos from that lens is something that I'd never experienced before, and I was totally hooked when I got that lens. Like I said, this was my first love. Not my first love, but just the first lens that had this magic. Every picture I took with it, or the best pictures that I ever took in the last 2 years have been with this lens. They just have this amazing quality to them. The contrast is great, the rendering is great, it has great 3D pop. The out of focus areas are smooth and creamy. I mean, the pictures I've taken with my son with this, they have an emotion that I feel about my son, and I feel that when I look at the picture. So when I got the Nikon Z camera, I'm recording this on the Z6 and the 24-70 kit lens with its great autofocus tracking and all that, so I'm in focus. But when I got that, suddenly I was forced to use this FTZ adapter, which absolutely infuriates me because it doesn't sit flat. The adapter comes down like half a centimeter more than the camera, so the camera's always wobbly. Suddenly you have this huge thing. This weighs 16 ounces with the lens and the adapter. These other two lenses are 14 ounces, or no, 12.8 ounces and 8 ounces respectively. So I wanted to find another lens that gave me that magic, but wasn't an F-mount lens, and I didn't have to use an adapter on it. I like my camera packages as small as possible, and I want to be able to take them everywhere, and this lens with this adapter on it is suddenly this huge piece of glass, and I just found myself not wanting to use it. So, I'd heard exceptional things about this 1.2 Voigtlander Nokton, and it's an exceptional piece of glass. It's gorgeous. And the great thing is with these M mount lenses, these are Leica M mount lenses, these will work on a lot of the new mirrorless cameras with a very cheap, simple adapter. Because of the distance from the back of the lens to the sensor. The Leica rangefinder M mount lenses will work on the Nikon Z system, they'll work on the Fuji system, they'll work on the Sony cameras, and so that is also very tantalizing to me. So that's why I went and started looking at the Leica M mount lenses. I knew I could use them on the Nikon Z with a very thin adapter. You know, this F to Z adapter is 4 times the thickness of the really small ones you can get for the Leica. So this is the Nokton 1.2. Like I said, it's in the mid-range of weight. It's about 12 ounces in this one. This is the Zeiss. This is about 8. How do these compare? I did a bunch of test shots with them, back and forth, different lenses, different things. These are all exceptional lenses. It's just like you will not be disappointed with any of these lenses. Some things to note: Nikon focuses the reverse direction that the Leica lenses focus. So the other lenses I have right now, I have just acquired some other Leica lenses, and they all focus the same direction. So now if I use this Nikon F mount, it's actually backwards. Infinity is on the left side of the ring instead of the right. So that's a little bit confusing. That said, I do prefer the thicker focus ring. It's just a better feel in my hand, and same thing goes for the 1.2, the Voigtlander 1.2. The thicker focusing ring is just really nice. The Zeiss, the build construction is amazing. From what I understand, Cosina, the factory, the same factory builds all 3 of these lenses. They build the Zeiss and they build the Voigtlander, so they're very comparable in terms of that. The Zeiss is a little finicky. It's a little bit smaller. The width of the place that you're focusing is a little bit smaller, and this nub in the bottom, it's not as good as the Leica notch for focusing, and it's not nice and thick like these. It's just not as good for focusing. The light gathering ability of the 1.2 is incredible. The sharpness of the 1.2 is incredible. The rendering is incredible. It renders almost exactly to my eye in terms of color and contrast and all that stuff to the 58-1.4, and they're both awesome. The differences are slight, but the Zeiss seems to have more 3D pop. I read another review, and it talked about the contrast of the lens and the way the in-focus area falls off to the out-of-focus area. It really does an exceptional job, and Zeiss lenses are known for their sort of 3D pop of separating the subject from the background. And I love that about the Zeiss. The other thing, like I said, I want the smallest kit I can get. And the Zeiss is a full 4 ounces lighter than the Voigtlander. And the Zeiss is a 1.5, the Voigtlander's a 1.2. What I'm shooting these days is my family's people. And while cool, like if you open the lens wide up, you can get a faster frame rate and hand hold it, but I still need to be at a 2.8 or a 4 if I'm shooting my son. Otherwise, his eyelashes are in focus and none of the rest of his face. It just doesn't go with shooting people to be shooting at a 1.2, in my experience. Obviously, there's certain shots where you want that look, whatever. But for me, the best shots that I've gotten of people are going to be around a 2 to a 4, and that gives a little more depth of field. So like, I'm not crazy about the 1.2. I don't need it to be that fast. So that's one strike against the Voigtlander. The other strike against it is its weight. It's full 4 ounces heavier. And on my camera, this tiny Zeiss, it's awesome. It's exceptional. It keeps the camera really small, and it's still, I mean, like, putting the pictures side by side, I just don't see any difference in the quality. The sharpness is both exceptional. The way they render the out of focus areas, the bokeh is amazing. I can't go wrong with either of these. And so really what's drawing me to the Zeiss is the weight on the Nikon Z camera. And you know, sorry to say that as much as I love this 58 1.4, I'm just not going to use it if it's that big on this camera. I'm not going to take it with me to the park when my kid's going to ride his bike. I'm just not going to use it as much. So I am getting rid of that. Now let's talk about price. The advantage of this old Voigtlander 58 1.4 is that it was like $400. Both of these are more in the $1,000 range. But again, I'm justifying it that this is a lens I'm going to have for my entire lifetime. I can take it off this Nikon camera. I can put it on a Leica camera if I ever get one. I can put it on a Fuji camera. I can put it on a Sony camera. So it really feels like a lens that I can have for a long, long time. The other thing that's notable about the Zeiss is the flare resistance is exceptional. And compared to the Voigtlander, I really prefer the way it doesn't flare as much. And people have written about this before with the Zeiss, with the Sonnar. This is a optical formula from the 30s, and it has this old-timey feel to it, and the light areas seem to be glowing in a certain way. I have found that. So there it is. That's my pick. The Zeiss 1.5 Sonnar 50mm is what I'm going to be going with. I'm very happy with it. I love the size. There's one other thing I should talk about. I forgot to mention this. One of the things I loved about this 58 1.4 is that it could focus very, very close. The close focus distance on this is 45 centimeters. Most Leica M rangefinder lenses have a close focus distance of 0.9 meters, so 90 centimeters, or 0.7, sometimes 0.5. But I love pictures of my son that are close. He's very close to me, and we got that shallow depth of field. I really like shooting like that. I like shooting close up. So the big bummer about the Zeiss for me was that the close focus distance is 0.9 meters. Most, the Voigtlander is 0.7, so it's a little bit closer, but still, it's like, that's not very close. That's almost, that's like an arm length and a half away. It's not intimate. It's too far for me, the way I shoot. But the internet to the rescue. This is an adapter that'll go from a Leica mount M lens to the Nikon Z, and they make these for all the different cameras. And they're very cheap adapters. This one's a little more expensive. It's a Yeenon, Y-E-E-N-O-N. Got it on eBay for 150 bucks. And the magic about this is it's like adding an extension tube to the lens. So when you mount the lens on the adapter, that goes on the camera, and then if you turn this black ring, it actually moves the lens farther away from the camera, allowing you to focus this lens incredibly close. I'll put up a picture here of the difference before and after the adapter, but this sealed the deal for me. The fact that I could get an adapter that basically functioned as a variable extension tube on the lens and allows me to focus incredibly close with this lens, and there's no extra glass. You're retaining all the qualities of the lens that you like. The sharpness is great. I haven't noticed anything that would put me off of using it like this. Obviously, you can't just focus back to infinity after you've sort of zoomed out the adapter. You got to zoom it back in if you want to focus far away again, but that's not really a problem to me. So that sealed the deal for the Zeiss for me, because I was thinking, oh, I'll just have to keep this. I love focusing close. It's so clunky. I hate it, but whatever. And I'm really happy to have found a solution. Also, it's nice that it focuses the same direction as the other lenses, the other manual focus lenses that I'm going to use with the Canon Z6. Sorry, the Nikon Z6. Never really shot Canon. Nothing against Canon, but always been a Nikon shooter. So that's the other thing, the close focus adapter. All right, here's a close-up of these three lenses. This is the Voigtlander 1.2 Nokton. This is the Zeiss 1.5 Sonnar. And this is the Voigtlander 85 1.4 with the Nikon FTZ adapter. So you can see very clearly how big this is compared to this. So that's the way it would be on your camera. And this is the way it just sort of turns and the lens comes up. And I know a bunch of different companies make these. This is one by Yeenon, Y-E-E-N-O-N. And I got it on eBay. From China, but it's well made. I do recommend it. In terms of functionality, I think I prefer the clicks on the Zeiss for the f-stop. They're a little more defined than they are on the Nokton 1.2. A little looser here, a little bigger throw. I definitely prefer the focus ring on the Nokton because it's a little thicker. This is kind of a thin strip, and I do wish it had a focusing tab like other Leica lenses instead of this nub, but it still works fine. That's neither here nor there. All right, I'm just gonna insert some crappy iPhone footage of the lenses on the camera. So this is the Nikon Z6 with the 24-70 Z-mount lens. As you can see, first of all, this is unbelievably infuriating that these two things don't line up. So you put it on the table and you've got this wobbly, annoying camera that won't sit flat. It's infuriating. But the ergonomics are great. The focusing is great, but it's just big and it's heavy. So let's put the others on. So this is the 58. This is my pick, the Zeiss with the Yeenon adapter, and you can see it's just a tiny, compact package. Doesn't look too ridiculous on the front of it. And some of these small lenses really look ridiculous on this lens mount, but it's a great little package. Hand holdable. The grip on the Z6 is really comfy. Yeah, it's just I really like this. And now let's throw on the Voigtlander 1.2. Absolutely, the Voigtlander 1.2 looks the best. It actually looks like it belongs on the camera. The size of the barrel, the width of the barrel is great in relation to the mount. The color, I'm going to get that one in black. I don't like the silver, but the focusing is great. The ergonomics are great. The focusing is actually better than the Zeiss in terms of comfort in my hand. So in terms of looks, the Voigtlander is awesome. It really fits this well, but it's noticeably heavier. It's a full 4 ounces heavier. It really is a noticeable difference when I'm using it. Let's pop the Zeiss back on. Yeah, it's noticeably lighter, more comfortable. It's just really nice. So there you go. There's the look on the camera. So that's it. There you go. There's my comparison. There's my opinion. And this hasn't been a scientific review. All three of these lenses produce exceptional pictures, and they're all very close in sharpness, rendering. They all do out of focus area beautifully. And more, what I wanted to do is just give you like a real world functional take, having used all three of these now. And my pick with the Nikon Z6 and other mirrorless cameras is definitely the Zeiss. A little bit more 3D pop. Sharpness is there. The out of focus areas are great. The flares are sort of beautiful instead of annoying, and the size and weight of it is exceptional. It's so flare resistant that you don't really need a hood on it. And then with the close focus adapter, it focuses super close, and I can still use it for close-up shots that I love so much. So the Voigtlander is also an exceptional choice. It's just a great lens, and actually, on the camera, the Voigtlander looks better because it fits the size of the Nikon Z mount better than the thinner. A lot of the thinner rangefinder lenses just look weird. It's like this big opening in this tiny little lens. It doesn't really match. So in terms of beauty on the camera, the Voigtlander is definitely it. But I'll still take the savings in 4 ounces of weight and the size of the Zeiss. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, when I go looking for this kind of information and I don't find it, I try to just do a quick comparison for someone else that might help you out. That's it. Have a good day.